So
Yeah,
you're
not only
really,
that,
yep.
there's been studies recently. I was just reading the other day that even the ammonia treated meat, um, is they're still finding cases of salmonella within the ammonia
Oh,
treated meat.
right.
So it's not even a foolproof plan.
And that's not too surprising in the ways that they treat animals in those farms.
Mhm.
It's completely inhumane practice, so it makes sense that there would be extreme amounts of bacteria living in these things. But anyway, they're the United States FDA, the head of the FDA, I believe, came out and said that around 70% of our meat is sold in the U.S. is in fact pink slime. And we also sell this to our children in schools. The federal government buys pink slime in large amounts to sell in schools. And so
Yeah.
I think this is a huge thing to bring into account because you can't be giving this stuff to kids. Their body
For the
is
most sensitive to it.
right, exactly. They're the most sensitive, and so they need to be protected by far the most. So I think it's irresponsible for us to be feeding our kids this.
And I love how they
Oh,
call it
absolutely.
lean, finely textured beef. How they term it that way
Right,
in order
lean,
to,
finely textured
to
beef.
kind of just
Yeah,
slip it by.
yeah,
Because like the USDA justifies, they quote it as that, and they bought like 7 million pounds of it for schools.
Yep.
yeah. I think that's truly atrocious. So I just wanted to touch on that because a lot of people, I was certainly unaware of this, and it's been happening for quite a while now. So
There's
um,
also a little article the other day talking about how it's not just in the States, but all of North American grocers are uh, a lot of their ground beef is pink slime, or at least not
yeah,
wholly, but partially pink slime.
yeah, and there's a
It's
few
pretty
there's a
crazy.
few companies that are actually stopping to sell it. So I know Safeway, McDonald's, and Taco Bell, I
Burger
believe
King.
Burger King, are all stopping to sell it, which is good. But
Or at least
definitely
claiming to at the moment.
they're claiming to at the moment,
Yeah, they're
right?
getting rid of it all right now.
But I think far more importantly than Burger King and McDonald's is we need to get it out of the schools. That's
Oh,
by
abs
Well,
yeah.
I mean,
far
at least, I mean, in an article I saw yesterday, there was actually, the school's at least given the option now. So, I mean, that's something we can see, but, they're
right,
still intending to sell it, and they will sell it to schools. There's schools
right.
that will buy it.
Well, and especially to the kids who don't have much of an option.
Right, exactly,
You know,
because
and
it's
it
going to be
seems that
much
it's always the
cheaper.
trend in especially in American society where, the kids that get the short end of the stick due to the social ladder and this
Socioeconomic
caste system,
status.
exactly, socioeconomics issues and whatever that may be occurring. But they're always the ones that get the short end of the stick. They're always the ones that get the cancers from bad meats and chemicals and whatever else. And
Right. And
it's
then they wonder why all these people are unemployed and lazy,
exactly
they
they've
never
given up
take
on the
into
system
account
because the
that
system gave up on them at a very young age.
right. On a more positive note, however, there was a gathering of secular, non-religious people in Washington, D.C. this weekend on Saturday, I believe. It might have gone all weekend. Um,
Reason rally.
but there was around it was called the Reason Rally, and it had around 20,000 people, which went uncovered in the news. So
Of
there's
course.
similarities with that in Occupy. And you can see the reason why they would want to block that out of the news. I mean, a gathering of 20,000 non-believers in the American capital. So they're obviously frightened to death of that. But I'm very happy that this came out because I think it's important that people start realizing that this isn't a nation under God, and this is really, I mean, anyone that claims that truly knows no history of how this country came into fruition. So I'm very glad that they came together. In China, what's happening right now is there's a plant, the Foxconn plant, which makes products for Apple and I believe Dell is right, Michael.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I remember when I was working for them, they were using the Foxconn motherboards
Okay,
for all their Inspiron systems.
okay. So yeah, so Dell too. They have. I'll actually let Pat elaborate a little more.
Well, there was a recent finding today by the Fair Labor Association, and this was additional to the excessive hours that we're going to get into. But 1,500 students were sent from the college in Henan, China, a vocational college, to a plant in Zhangzhou, and these were students under these. They were using them for basically forced internships, and yeah, they were working 10 hours a day, 6 7 days a week. When the legal limit is 8 hours a day and 5 days a week. So, and there was an average of about like 27,000 interns a month. is what we're seeing.
Mhm.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and I think what we were talking about earlier when we talked about this, Mike, was that
Yep.
it's interesting to see that all this forced labor and stuff is happening and how bad these conditions are. But in a lot of cases, there's worse stuff going on
Far
in
worse. Yeah,
different parts of the
exactly.
world.
You just have this popping up because it's in the news recently with Foxconn, and they're taking a lot of new contracts, not just Apple.
Right,
And Apple is such a huge company themselves that they draw a lot of media attention for a lot of the stuff they do because they're very much a social
right,
company more so than
And
anything
they're
else.
right.
working 11 days without break when the legal limit being 6 days. So of course, just multiple violations being broken.
And it makes you when you understand the sort of zeitgeist point of view, you see how truly atrocious this sort of stuff is because in many ways these people do not have to waste their lives like this. We have the ability to
Well,
relieve
it's
them.
yeah, exactly, and I mean not only that, but it's fairly simplistic. Human worth is far greater than fucking
Right.
profits.
Very much so.
And
And that's a huge problem that we've had in society is that we downgrade humans, whether it be their race, their religion, their whatever. We throw whatever reason at them to demonize them or make them smaller, so that profits are somehow more important. And the talk as profits as if it's the will of the greater is better than the will of the small. Like if you have to kill one person to save a million, that's okay. Well, if these people die to make a million, that's okay.
And
right.
It's the same kind of
and
mentality.
yeah, and it's this downgrading of everyone, and it's actually like stunting innovation. When the classic argument for markets is that it's promoting competition and stuff. But I mean, honestly, there's
Right, yeah.
massive
Where it's
drawbacks.
doing
Yeah.
very the opposite. It's creating monopolies and shutting down people who are trying to, start
Yeah,
off.
and going back to what you said about, human well-being is much more important than profit. There's many cases where human well-being leads to more profits. And you can see that there's the one Australian software company. This was in a RSA Animate talk that every term they have a day where they're allowed to do anything they want and everyone can just work
Right,
on
yeah.
whatever they want, and it turns out that during this one day they have all sorts of new glitches solved, they have all sorts of new products to sell, and the amount of innovation that happens in that one day in some ways exceeds what they do in weeks in the normal conditions. So I think
Yeah,
that's extremely important to
sorry.
take into account when people argue for capitalism. A lot of its foundations, you can't really hold them up to scrutiny and experiments whatsoever because in many ways our psychology is opposite of competition and you
Oh
know
yeah. I don't know if you've seen it, but there's a speaker on TED, Dan Pink, who does a talk on motivation, and that's what he's talking about how people in general, when you incentivize them with money profits, you sell a cell phone and you make this amount of money, sort of thing. If you have that A to B mentality, um, you're very limited in what you're going to use in terms of your brain. Like you're not going to try very hard. Um, I can't remember the exact name of the test they did, but they basically took two groups of people, and they incentivized one group with money, and the other group they didn't give them any reason. They just they told them to try their hardest, and their name is going to be put on their work basically, so it's not anonymous.
right.
And it was amazing the results. They did this, I think it was over 30 times with 30 different schools around the world, and each time it showed that the kids that were incentivized took twice as long and did half as well as the kids who weren't incentivized and had
Right.
their name put on the product.
Yeah.
Yeah, imagine.
When your name, your soul, your essence is put into a product and you're showing it to the world, you're much more likely to put your effort into it,
Yeah, more
to
pride
do
into it.
everything that you can to make it the best that it can be, rather than if all I need to do is go from here to here and I get this, well, all I'm going to do is go from here to here and make the minimal effort.
Right.
And that's what happens with most businesses, rather than you got like Google and stuff. I don't know, Google is one of the companies that does what you're talking about. I think it's something like 20%, I could be wrong, but I believe it's 20% of the time while you're at work is dedicated to free time, which is, I believe, what was called Google Chrome was created during that time, as well as Hungry Birds or Angry Birds, sorry.